delighted today to have Teresa and Carla. Not only are they panelists, but they're also dear friends of mine. We go back a long time working together. And they've got an organization called Skills 3. So Teresa, I'll hand over to you, or Carla, I'm not sure who's moderating. I'll hand over to you guys to take it over from there. If you can write in the chat where you're calling from and your name, so we have an idea of who's in the room. Thank you, everyone.
Well, Carla's moderating me, so she can moderate me in. Unmute yourself first, though. No? Okay, well, I'll start in that case. Well, thank you. We're dialing in from the UAE, and I do see some familiar faces, but I'd love to know where the rest of you from. Oh, hi, Chet, from Brazil. Excellent. And oh, hi, Joyce from Kenya. Wow. And Jan from our neighbors in Abu Dhabi. I'll have a little bit coming in. Oh, nice to see you too. Okay, so first of all, thank you, Lorraine. Thanks for having us. And thank you to NAB, Crown Foundation, also MIT React. Really so excited to be here. For those who don't know me on here, which I assume is actually majority, so Carla and I, we are co-founders at Skills 3, Creative Enterprise for Social Impact. We are based in Dubai in the UAE, and we have been working together for the past 10 years, but in the current outfit as Skills 3, the past 6 years. And we started off as separate entities before coming together. And now we are very much committed to being a purpose-driven organization. Our organization uses sewing as a way to create livelihood and financial mobility for women from disadvantaged communities and countries in crisis in the UAE and beyond. Our work has taken us to Turkey on the border of Syria, in a town called Gaziantep, which you might have heard of. Recently, it was unfortunately hit by an earthquake. I mean, as it stands, Gaziantep is a very crucial place for the kind of work that we do. A lot of refugee and agencies operate from there. And following that, our work took us to Kurdistan, Iraq, and where we delivered the same program as well. And when we came back to the UAE, we decided to make it our mission to be a more purpose-driven organization, and that's where we've been in for the past 6 years. So there's a couple of housekeeping rules. I'm not really a rules-based person, but we will be taking questions throughout the session. If you could pop them into the chat box. I have left ample time at the end, I hope, because once I get talking, that's it. I have left some time at the end for questions, so please feel free to chuck them at us. Like I said, in between the topics, I will also be soliciting and asking questions. Okay, so what am I going to do? My session, I'm going to call up PowerPoint now. You know, I've got to confess, I'm a tech donkey, so I might end up just crashing the whole system, so I hope not. Here we go. So thank you for signing in to Beyond Tech, Innovating Sewing Creative Skills as a solution to livelihood and economic opportunities for women within their cultural context. And what I'll be talking about is what we believe, and it's not necessarily the summit's opinion, but we've have plenty of solutions which center around low tech. So today's session is mostly around low tech, and I know that a lot of sessions have been about tech, and not that we're against tech, but we are coming from a low tech perspective. So I'm just going to set the scene a little bit for you. The realm that we work in, we work mostly with women, not necessarily refugee communities. So in the UAE, we also work with women from disadvantaged communities and lower income Emiratis. But however, they do still face the same issues around access to learning, access to employment, and access to opportunities. So the women that I'm going to focus on for the first part is the refugees. So a lot of them, as we know, you probably realise through the through the migration summit, and through possibly learned experience or through the news channels, that the women, when they leave where they come from, they often leave very quickly with their families, and so from where they do travel from, they not necessarily plan to leave, and sometimes the situation forces them to, but when they do leave, they grab whatever they can do to start their new life. And that usually is grabbing their families, their children, and a few little belongings to make the journey across to wherever they're going to. Sometimes they go on their own because the men in their family have already left and moved on to the new place. And sometimes they travel alone in just groups of women and children, which can be quite challenging for them. But once they are where they are, when they move to their supposedly safe place, they do face a whole raft of other challenges, and one of them is actually survival. From where they have moved from, quite possibly they have had small jobs, and some of them are fairly qualified. And when they move to where they are, where they move to their new host community, they face challenges such as trying to get the paperwork sorted. And without paperwork, you're virtually invisible. You are trying to access healthcare and education, and without that, without your paperwork, you can't necessarily get those. Some people on this call I know have been expats or are expats currently, and although we are women and also men who move countries for work, that's where the difference really ends. For us, we need to go and get our driving license. We can just go and do that because we have paperwork. We need to find a job. We can just provide our papers. But for the women that we work with, this is a real challenge. So just setting the scene for all of you, and just onto the next slide. Oops. I'm not sure what's happening here. There we go. Just a little bit of, so it's blocking my thing. Here we go. I've split my talk up into 5 little sections, not necessarily sharing time equally. We'll try and leave some time at the end for some chat. We're going to be talking about understanding the problems first of all, what the day one looks like. Typically, our programs are roughly half a year, 6 months long. And day one, obviously, is when we all kick off. Day 120 is the end of the sewing side, and then more into that, by that point, production. So we're going to walk through the understanding the problem and why they are there and how they got there, apart from just being moving to a new country, ensuring validity, why support and incentives matter. And this we found is a massively crucial part which guarantees pretty much the success of the program. This is the part where we work together to make sure that we fill in any gaps that there might be, which prevent them from accessing the workshop properly or accessing learning materials and everything else properly. All these things really, really do matter. Of course, and then we'll head off into impact measurement. Hugely important to chart the success or the non-success, whichever way it might be. And we're going to be talking about not just the traditional forms of impact measurement, but something which is quite fun, but still really crucial to understanding impact measurement is beyond numbers and statistics sometimes. In our case, you'll see when we get there what I'm talking about. And of course, hugely important, they've come through the 120 days of learning and then 3 months after of production. What happens after? Carla and I, we are committed to making their I won't say production line, it's not necessarily the case, but the production unit as useful and as occupied as possible. Because that's important for what we're trying to achieve for them. So for the women that we work with, it is largely around providing the ability to silently support their families from a home-based employment opportunity. So for them, it's a case of providing educational opportunities for their children. In the UAE, where we operate, so other places this might not be applicable, I'm talking from a local point of view, is that in the UAE, education is a paid provision, whichever level. So you've got, villa schools, informal schools, and it goes up to extremely fancy private schools as well. But at every step of the way, they're all paid. But quite often, the women find that their children get struck out from school because of lack of ability to pay fees. And once you have the lack of ability to pay fees, the children are struck out. So this part is really important in order to ensure that the future of their children and the future of their children's education. Then we're going to head on into the Q&A, where you'll have opportunity to have a chat. I'll get this to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So understanding the problem in day one. So the women that I work with, they come from very traditional family backgrounds. The women's job in their home countries or in their home communities is very much a home-based responsibility. The women are responsible for looking after the home, the welfare of the children, and also anything around the domestic chores. So that could, like I said, that could be even doing all the shopping, and that is what they also want to do. But in their new environment, they know that they have to somehow push forward and try and find something different to support their families, but without upsetting the status quo. And why sewing? Sewing is a skill which is culturally acceptable. It is culturally relevant, socially acceptable in the context that we work within. I know that this may not be the chosen route for other women, and other organizations prefer to focus on tech, but for where we are, this is very much a very valued skill to have. And more importantly, what the skill of sewing does is that it can keep them with their families, which they prefer to be. A lot of the women prefer to work at home because this is something they've seen modeled by their mothers and other women in the community as well. So their primary concern is looking after the home and bringing up the children. And all these requirements were there in their home country. But also, it's also there in their new home country, in the new country where they're going to be moving to as well. And how do they do that if they're in somewhere unfamiliar, in a neighborhood and a community which is not necessarily one that they're familiar with? So a healthy number of women who do make the move are white-collar workers, and they do feel quite confident in finding a job. But even still, when they do want to find a job, they do find certain challenges, such as, again, childcare. So whether you're working in the office or not, childcare is still a responsibility which is for the women. A lot of them can't work where they move to. More to the point is down to government regulations. They don't have the right paperwork. If they do want to work in an office or as a teacher or an accountant, their paperwork and accreditation may not stand in their new country. So they're impacted by that part too. Lack of paperwork, which gives them the right to work and also to open bank accounts, is prohibitive to them finding work and being successful. Oops, I give you my notes. So in the next hour, I'll be taking through the path of how these women manage and how they end up in our program and how we move on from the program. Right, so understanding the problem, where are we? Sorry about this. So this conversation takes place around the challenge of women on the move. I'd like to ask you, if you can pop some little answers in the chat box, what do you think the 21st century looks like for these women? In your mind, what does this look like? I'll give you a few seconds to write down. I can't see the chat box, so unfortunately. So this may not be an exercise which we can actually do, but I'll read them through later. So as I was saying earlier, a lot of the organizations that look after women in these kind of situations, they are approached by companies and organizations, offering them the ability to go into tech. Now that's all well and good because we are a tech-based society now, and the push to tech, especially for everybody, is obviously very useful. But for the women, it really highlights a divide. A lot more citizen, agencies and what's available to them is now online, and with this brings a whole raft of problems, a lack of ability to access the services they desperately need, and also in terms of offering them education and opportunities for work, having to go through these tech-based and digital-based jobs is actually quite tricky. The lack of digital literacy, a lot of them have moved from countries where perhaps they've not had the chance to access education, especially higher education, which gives them the ability to understand what's required of them once they go into a tech-based job or into tech-based learning. So again, as the months go on and as more and more of these opportunities come up, it actually creates more of a divide for them. And for them, what they need pressing the most is to look after their families. Secondly, the language barrier. They've moved, some of them have moved to the UAE, so it's a like for like quite often. But when they do move elsewhere, it's quite tricky because the language barrier is, they don't speak English, for instance, and if it's not English, it could be another language. And so again, once more, the divide gets bigger and bigger. Limited access to technology as well is a big driver. When they do move to where to a new country, they may not have the hardware, software needed to do all these kind of things. So again, impacted, and this is where we come in as well. Addressing the challenges for us is a multifaceted approach. It's not just about teaching them sewing and then they're off, and that's all well and good. I'm going to talk you through what our program looks like. First of all, take a little step back to what refugee life looks like. So before they come to the UAE where we operate, this is what it does look like. And some of you may already be familiar with this through your work or otherwise. This is what, one of our projects in Bahaka Camp. So Bahaka Camp is north of Mosul in Kurdistan, Iraq, about 40 minutes out of Erbil city centre. So the children in the camps, they don't necessarily have much opportunities for education. In terms of what they do have is primary school starts at 7 years old, and early years learning is actually really non-existent. I don't know if some of you listening and have got families, and if you do, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it when you have your children. The first things first, you're really fantasizing about what nursery to send them to, what kind of system. You're thinking about college, university, and all opportunities. For the women that we work with, the most important thing for them is actually living day by day. The children do have school, but quite often the schools are overcrowded, so therefore space can be quite hard to find. More importantly, the parents don't really feel that there is necessarily the incentive to go and study hard, because obviously opportunities are quite low. So, however, within all of that, education and their children still play a massive, massive part in all of what they do every single day. These photos were taken in January, so it's a pretty challenging time. And this is where our workshop took place. So our workshop in Bahaka Camp was to deliver a sewing workshop with the potential of going to livelihood. So giving the women a skill that they can have to operate within their own homes. Even if it's a very basic setup, they'll be learning to sew. And from there, the skill, they will be taking it to either sewing on a barter system, so they'll sew for each other, or if another organisation apart from ours comes in, they can also sew for them too. And a lot of the women who live in these camps, they actually want to leave and go home. So home could be Mosul, home could be Baghdad, home could be Kirkuk. In Bahaka camp, the refugees come from mostly IDPs, internally displaced populations. So that when they do go home, they are able to use their newly found skill and support their families. And however, within the camp, how they can work is that the camp often gives a lot of donations of clothing, which may or may not be suitable. So having the skill of sewing is something they can use. So this is a little snapshot of what life looks like for the women. They spend most of the time taking care of their families. Their houses are very close together and they're very basic housing. They are made mostly for shelter. They're too hot in the summer and they're way too cold in the winter. Insulation is quite poor and the ventilation is also quite poor. They're heated up by kerosene lamps. Not all day long, because kerosene is rationed, but also kerosene gives headaches, which is something we found out when we were teaching in the classrooms, that within 20 minutes the headaches kick in. And we only had one kerosene heater between 3 classrooms, so every 20 minutes we swap the kerosene lamp around for us to continue. Oops. So now we move on to how our sewing program runs. So this program needs people. The program needs people in order to make it work. However, it's not as straightforward as the women just come into the centre and coming to learn. We'll talk you to the 3 little points here. You can see we're working with the men and the families to make this happen. So for one of our projects, the women, how we found the women to attend the program, there was a general circular going around through the organisation with a call to action for women to come and learn a new skill and also turn that into creative livelihood. It was really oversubscribed, as you can imagine, because I think the women wanted to have the opportunity to make money to support their families. However, we had to let them know that please speak to the men in your family, whether that's a husband or whether that's a father or an uncle, someone in the family, to let them know that this is what you're intending to do. And rightly or wrongly, whether we believe it or not, that they have to ask the men in their family. We do respect that this is the way that, in order to make the whole program successful, in a sense that the buy-in from the families. So once the women went home and explained the program to their families, because the program is 6 months long and it looks like roughly one day a week for the first 3 months away from their families, away for the whole day, which is something the women never have done before. And also into something which is quite unknown, which is education. And then for the men, we had to really make sure that they were on board with the whole thing to ensure the success for the women and also for the outcome too, for the men to really get on board with it. Which means also either stepping in with childcare or finding alternative childcare. So with that in mind, the numbers do drop drastically until it starts. So on day 1, what that looks like is that the women, when they come in, they are shy. They're a bit confused because they're not sure exactly what's going to be happening in the sessions, even though we do outline it once they're there, and also because we are delivering the workshop in English with the help of a translator. It's quite a new setting for them. They feel, also previous to that, the only experience I had in education was at school, and a lot of them have not finished general high school, finishing school around about 13 to 14 years old before getting married. And so all of these combinations, the women feel really nervous. They don't look us in the eye. There's no smiling. There's no talking amongst themselves, even though they come from the same country, not necessarily the same village. And something we also realized as well is that although they are from, say, Syria, the majority of them that we have worked with, There's still a differentiation between them. They come from different villages, they come from different tribes, different backgrounds. So putting all of them together doesn't necessarily mean they'll all get on. And that was definitely the case in the first session. We couldn't get any answers from them when we tried to find out if they were looking forward to anything or if any questions. Prior to that, they very rarely ventured out of their home to socialize. So there's lots of feelings of isolation generally in their community. And it is for them kind of like back to school, but in a way that they've never seen before, in a room full of women, and also a bunch of facilitators which are going to be taking them through this so-called promise process. And I think a lot of them feel that committing to something like this and being unsure of the outcome, that's something we had to really try to explain to them as well, that with as much as we can to make sure that everything is okay for them, to take them along the journey of learning. So ensuring validity, this really centers around how we manage the attendance and all the things, like I said in the previous slide. In order for them to get to the centre, there's a whole, the getting their costs, whether it's by taxi, by bus, or if they have the chance to be driven there. For our programme, the main thing that we ensured all the way through and all our programmes is that transport is provided. Because it's quite easy to say, I can't really come because I can't get there, or the bus is late, or there is no bus. And often more to the point is because transport costs. Transport costs them the equivalent of, say, 20 dirhams, about, I don't know, $5, $6. But that's the difference between either providing a meal, going towards education, or something for the family. And an education for them, for the women, for the program, is something that doesn't feature very highly, especially in the realms of what else they have to spend on. And so in our programs, we always ensure that there is a provision for transport, and the women get that paid out to them when they come. And that was something they were pleasantly surprised. And interestingly, that in terms of the dropout rate, we faced very, very little dropout. The women, if they didn't come, bearing in mind we're operating in COVID times, it was usually just through COVID they didn't come. We're proud to say that it's a very healthy, around 85-90% attendance rate, which is crucial for them for learning. It's a very fast-paced lesson. The other incentive that we also provide, and something which is really important, is a meal. And I know it seems really insignificant, but a lot of them take up to 2 hours to get to the centre. And even in the camps we work as well, we ask that the camp management provide a meal during the day so that they don't have to walk all the way home. And when I say all the way home, the camps are pretty large, so it could be easily up to 45 minutes to get from one side of the camp to another. And once they're home, they may not want to come back. We don't want to lose out on the afternoon session, but for our urban sessions, the women have a light meal in the camp. In the centre, and that kind of keeps the focus going. It provides a natural break, and also it's a time where we can sit down together and not just be a teacher and a student relationship, but to show that we are there to help them with their learning journey, and also to grow the element of trust. So you see in this picture, I just want to quickly explain this picture here. This is in Kurdistan, in the camp, and you'll see that they are sewing these huge bags. So our workshops aren't just about sewing and making like a production line. We teach them to sew and build on the technical ability from there, and build up bit by bit, module by module, skill by skill. But in every one of our lessons, we have a little bit at the end for some creativity. So it's a way for them to explore what they've learned and put into practice independently. And we noticed that these women were making these really, really huge bags, like suitcase sized. So we asked our translators what they were, and actually what it is because they want to go back home to Mosul. And so in this particular case, they want to go back to Mosul, and this bag was to take home all the things that they had bought. So it's not just about sewing, and we're not there. It's a non-book based learning as well. So we do know that they lose focus and attention once we start talking about numbers and books and looking at the blackboard. We head straight into the sewing. So with this exercise, when they made the bag, we could see that this is something that really resonated with them, with something which is of use to them, which is really important in our programs, that we take into consideration the things that they like to do and the things that are important to them. So our sewing program has two parts. One which is the revenue generating model, which is the products that we design and they make. And the other part is products for home and life. So that would be like abaya, jalabiya, the Arabic house dress, kaftans, trousers, skirts, hats, cushions, things for their home, things to elevate the way they live. Mostly it is quite bare, but with a little bit of their sewing skill and once they start making money, we do know that they've been buying like fabric to enhance their homes. So they're creating a sense of worthiness, and like I said, why the support incentives matter. And that is mostly also to instill confidence in them that we are there on their side, that they're not there necessarily to ensure the outcome which doesn't suit them. And to gain the cooperation, which is super important, we need to work together with them to give them all the tools that they need to move through the workshop. Our workshops do have an individualized approach in the sense that we are able to troubleshoot each of their little skills that they need to build upon. So every session, at the end of every session, we start measuring impact, which I'll touch upon later, and we start measuring impact very, very early on. Sorry. There's interference in the sound apparently. I don't know how to get hold of that one. 1 second. Sorry, I'll close this down. Sorry. The individualized approach, sorry, was touching upon that. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if you can still hear me. Where was I now? The individualized approach of learning. So we do chart impact from the very beginning. Impact measurement is something we do take very seriously, and it's the only way that we can get 100% of them over the line at the very end, and 100% of them over the line and earning as well, which is super important for their morale too. Using the existing technology for learning support, and what that means is rather than being based there full time, because women can't come into the centre full time like a traditional school, we have to find other ways of supporting them, and and this is where tech has really helped. Despite earlier on I was saying about tech has really helped in this instance, is that we use WhatsApp to communicate with women. They write to us directly, so they don't feel a sense of embarrassment, or they don't feel they can't come to us because the line is directly to us. So every lesson we set homework of sorts. When I say in air commas, it's because it's just understanding their technical ability. So we'll leave them with their homework, and when we set it, they complete it throughout the week. And then not only do they send it to us for assessment, they can also ask us for any questions they might have, or any tips that they might have, or when things go wrong, they can write to us directly. We encourage them to contact us if they have a problem before they start it. So rather than do it wrong and unpick it, they send it through at the beginning, and then we can edit it on the screen and send it back to them. And we do use Google Translate. Their English and our Arabic don't really match in terms of ability, so we use Google Translate to give out the advice. But also we leave little videos for them and voice notes. During COVID, when we had the workshops, getting down to Abu Dhabi or wherever we were teaching was a real problem. So we started creating small little YouTube videos, just very simple ones with kind of scrolling pictures with writing in English and Arabic. So they can pick it up when they need to. This is largely also because during COVID, their children have to go to school as well. And with only one device in the whole house, it means that the children take precedence and the women have to wait until it's their turn. So rather than try to host the workshops online or send down live content, we send down pre-recorded content that they can refer to all times. But also this means that they have 3 different ways to communicate with us. It will be either in person in the sessions. It will also be via WhatsApp, so on a direct line to us. And then also they do have a support group, which is like a virtual classroom. They'll send words of encouragement to each other. They'll send photographs. And we noticed that as that went along, at the beginning, the chat was quite silent. Nobody really contributed, although we wrote every day, how are you? And please share your work. But once we noticed that they started sending each other words of encouragement as well, we knew that by that point they started to kind of gel with each other. The other key point, which has been really, really important, was providing the machine to take home. Because this is a home-based program, the learning only takes place in the center. All the production takes place at home. So sending down the machine to their homes was actually super important. And also for them to be able to build upon their skills and not let the gap become too big. It is largely a business in the box. Everything is sent down in a box, and they have the machine stored away inside there, including all of their kit. So rather than have to have a whole big setup, which we know is impossible for the way they live, the machine going home was hugely important. And this is also in the camps as well. In the camps, it can be quite tricky because they do run a generator. So between the center and the home, they can get to work. But these are just some of the guidelines that we have. And just being flexible is super, super important. From week to week, month to month, we try to work with them to ensure that they're happy every step of the way. We've sometimes also swapped the order of the lesson plans around when we see that they're getting a bit tired and fed up of maybe too much of their technical skills. We'll put in something which is more fun to revive the atmosphere and their mood, which seems to work. Ultimately, what they want to do is not only just make money, but also to provide for their families. Currently in the UAE and much of those who are Muslims, it's Ramadan. So it is the holy month, which is ending next week, the week. Significant because it's a time of gifting. New clothes as when the families celebrate. So this is something really important to them, and the skill of sewing has really helped them to be able to provide that part for their families, given their limited resources, creating new clothes, creating a nice setup for the Ramadan Eid meal and the break of fast every day. So it's not just sewing, it really, really isn't. We can see here, so at the beginning, the lessons are quite technical. This is in time of COVID. The women here are learning how to make the bag. So here we are post the initial skills training. The skills training, like I said, it's 120 days. So the 3 months of learning to sew. The women in this series of photographs, they are beginning, middle, and end. So at the beginning, they are learning about the relationship between the stitches, the seam, and the machine, and how to achieve tidiness, all the things which are super important. Every step of the way, we are troubleshooting for them. And this is where the impact measurement part on each module is super important, because we can't let them go ahead and just do the work without any pride. So technical skills are super important. Accuracy is important. We want to make sure that they really understand what they're doing, because once the program is over and we start to pull back and take off the training wheel, so to speak, they're pretty much left on their own with us supervising from afar. So they really do need to nail the accuracy. We talk about things like tidy stitching. We talk about things like the pain points to look at, all the features which make a product buyable and not just a pity purchase. They are fairly complicated in a sense, because that's the nature of product. It's very hard to sell a product which is not appealing in any way with any features. So in the first picture, we're showing them how to put the pieces together. Now in sewing, it's color back to front activity. So we do need to try to explain to them how we achieve the final product, sewing it not necessarily in the order or visual aspect in their heads. They do work together quite well. Cohorts are split into 2 cohorts so that we can manage not just the numbers, but also each individual learning journey for them. Some of them are faster than others, and it's not necessarily because some of them are cleverer than others. It's that they all learn at different paces, but we are there and committed to making sure that no matter how fast or slow they learn, that they come through over the line. So the product so the picture you see the lady holding up the bag. This is in the product development stage. So once they're through with the basic learning and they go into production, this is just one of the products that they make. And the fabric that you can see there is a fabric called Sadu. This Sadu material is synonymous with the UAE, and it's mostly used in furnishings. There are around 25 different types of Sadu, and the Sadu is a particular language, and how it runs and the geometric prints is a little language that they have, which is different from family to family. So different families have different Sadus, and different regions of the UAE, different emirates of the UAE, as well as GCC, have their own type of Sadu. And we use Sadu because we try to use as much as possible fabric and resources which are from the UAE. So not only does our program support the women, but also supports our local economy. The designs are such that it's not too Sadu heavy. Sadu is quite a very woolly product, and so carrying a bag like that can be quite hot. The products that we design are mostly for the tourism market, and our story behind that is about sending the message of the UAE to the world through the form of our products that the ladies make. So it's taking their name not just within the UAE, but also across borders to other countries and beyond. I don't know if you have any questions you might want to ask. I see some chat there. Let's see. Thank you. Are there any questions? Oops. Any questions? Lana, a good question. How do they sell the products? I'm going to be coming to that towards the end. And who does... Oh! Yeah, Lorraine has got a bag. And how do they do the marketing? Okay, so Shambavi has asked, if someone's not good at sewing, what do you do? That's a really good question. I did mention earlier that we do have a very highly individualized process, in as much as we can, given the fact there are other women in the classroom. When they're not good at sewing, we look at their product, and that will come. I will show you in a second as well. Some of the slides that we have. We look at the stitches, for instance, and then we show them for how to set the machine. Perhaps the machine's not in the right setting, perhaps they're rushing, perhaps they're not understanding how they got to go slower. For a lot of them, at the beginning especially, there was a lot of mistakes. The mistakes was happening because they just wanted to finish it. They thought that by finishing it quickly, that they were off the mark. Just come close the chat. That they were off the hook to continue. But we try to explain to them, sometimes the case of just slowing down. Sometimes if they're not good at sewing, it's not necessarily always a sewist. Sometimes it's just the machine that's setting that. Is that I think the sewists amongst us might also understand that too. But it's a really good question. We do tackle that part week on week. So when we in the sessions that we host, we will take the individual sewist aside and ask them to show the work, and then we'll show them, we'll mark on the bag or on the zip pouch where the weaknesses are, perhaps where the pain points are, and we'll show them how to go through that. And with repeated practice, usually within that session, the problem's ironed out. So we don't just leave them to their own free will and move on and leave them flagging behind. Lana and David, if you don't mind, I'll answer your questions towards the end. Let's close this down. So here we are at the part about really is the social impact part, and so the impact measurement part, I should say. And now impact measurement is crucial. It's crucial for us, it's crucial for the organisation, it's crucial for the funders, it's crucial for the project manager, it's crucial all round. We need to chart the way that they work. And also more to the point really as well, is charting not just the success, but where we can do better each time. So each session, although we do have the plans are set out for the whole session, we do have to monitor their progress closely, because the ideal situation is that 100% of them are sewists by the end of the program. So in order to do that, we do have to tackle the part of the measuring the impact on their progress. In terms of sales and how they're getting on, it really is not just about the numbers, and obviously numbers do matter, and for those who are interested in impact measurement, it's usually around data, percentages, how many women learn to sew, how many women haven't learned to sew, how many people are making, how many people are selling, how much are we making, all those kind of things, to build up the whole big picture of how the program has worked, whether it's been successful. Not necessarily a return on investment for the funding organisation, but definitely a measurement of how well they're going to be doing going forward. And the traditional ways that we usually use are things like, for instance, obviously the data is one thing, but also, do they find employment afterwards? Some of the women have started their own small little businesses, and within our program we have got entrepreneurial skills module, which talks about things like pricing and profit and loss, how to price well, not necessarily according to the formula, but pricing and then looking at the market rate for a product. So we show them how to do that, and we show them how to keep a very basic profit and loss, a balance sheet, and also how to calculate wastage. So all these small things together with the sewing set them up to be like little production units of their own, should they wish, if they want to start something themselves. Now the women that sew with us, they're not beholden to us in any way. They're not exclusively working with us. They can work in a variety of ways. So when they work with us, it's a case of they make the product that we design. So in our product range, we have got 15 products, all bags, zip pouches, that kind of thing, mostly for the gift market. And so in the lean times, they can sew all the time. They sew these products day in, day out, should they wish. We don't have a quota. We don't hold them to numbers. We also very sensitive to their daily needs, or if anything's happening in their family, whether it's perhaps a sickness or a death or anything like that. They just let us know that in that moment in time, they don't have the capacity or the emotional well-being to be sewing, and that's absolutely fine. But when they do so, one thing that we're really, really keen on and we're really committed to is that we always pay out. We pay out at the moment that we take the product in and we quality control it. They get paid for that, because at any one time we're sitting on 100 and something bags, which means that if their bags at the bottom of the pile doesn't get sold, they might not be paid for another month or so before it goes to retail. So we always pay out and we front end that, because that's something which we know, and we find that that is a massive incentive for them to keep on going, is the monetary aspect. So as I said, sewing is a very visual skill. And so within that, how we measure the way they have succeeded in learning and how their progress has been charted is whether the lines are straight or wonky. So at the beginning, like most of us, I don't know about you, but when I started driving, I think that no one was safe on the roads because I was not driving that well. But here we go, 18 years later, I'm fairly proficient. And same with sewing. You're driving a sewing machine at the beginning, you have a heavy foot, and the machine is not that easy to guide, not easy to steer, it's quite fiddly. So we take notice of how they progress within the lesson plan, within the whole program, and against each other as well. But against each other in the sense that we can see whether or not we're going too fast, perhaps, or we're pushing them too hard to do something they're not capable of doing at the moment in time. And cake equals success. And I know I said it's not just about numbers, but the cake part is hugely important, especially in our session, not because we love cake, but there's a real reason behind that. So impact measurement in the form of cake, and how can that be? So if we go back to day one, so impact measurement takes place on day 120. In day one, we provide a meal. We provide a light meal for them. It's usually like pastries and like mini pizzas, something which is easy to eat. And they were kind of like okay, happy with it. They eat it because it's a novelty and it's something unusual. But round about session number 3, a girl came in and she said, I bought you some biscuits. Bearing in mind, in the first session, no one said a word to anybody, least of all us. They had no eye contact. In fact, if we went up to them, they would pretty much run away, or they would kind of like lower their eyes and stop working until we moved away. And we also take that as a sign of a lack of trust, perhaps, also not knowing what the outcome for them might be, working with us. But when we went back week after week, we're always greeting them. We make an effort to speak as much Arabic as we can to them. We also ask about their families. Now, we don't get involved in their families' lives, but we do know they have children. And so as women, we chit-chat and, slowly become friends. So in the third session, a girl came in and she said, she took Carla and I aside, and she said, I've made you some biscuits. And I think it was because they didn't like the ones that we provided, clearly. And she said, I made some biscuits, but they're only for you, so please don't share them. And so she kind of gave us a little tray of biscuits. And they were really good, traditional Syrian biscuits. And the other girls saw her do that. And the following week, this plate of pancakes turned up to our workshop. And so we never knew from one week to the next, but what accompanied the pancakes was more than just the pancakes. It was a hug, it was a smile, it was eye contact. When you smile, and there was masks time in those days as well, so you only see the eyes, but you can see when someone's not smiling, the eyes are pretty much flat. But we noticed as the weeks went on that we could see their movement under the mask. The eyes were more brighter, and there was a lot more laughter. The first 2 lessons, the classroom was so silent, apart from the sewing machines. They didn't say a word to each other. And we did try and encourage them to work together so that they can help each other. Passing on a skill reinforces what you've learned. But they were very reliant on us to solve the most simplest of problems that they could probably solve for each other, because we know each individual skill, that we know that the person next to them could actually help them. So in the first session, that definitely did not happen. But by the time the day 120 came round, we never knew what was going to be facing us or greeting us when we turned up. And so week upon week, the cakes just got more and more. And I know that it seems such a shallow way of measuring impact. But for us, on that part of the emotional well-being and trust and also inclusivity amongst each other, we realized that food is a way for communities to connect. And the way that they showed each other that they were together, and the way they showed us that they were enjoying the sessions, was through the form of cake. There's some more questions up here. Let me have a quick check.
It's okay. I'll moderate the questions. You continue.
Okay, I can't close the chat box down. Here we go. So cake as a data point, it really does work. For us, pie charts are great. Pies are also good. Apple pies are even better. We had all manners of pies in the session, and we can measure the happiness factor in that. So the learning data, we measured that in results in straight lines. We measured that in the way that the products turned out. We measured alignment, speed at which they finished it, the accuracy, tidiness. All of those things are visual in terms of measuring how they learn. But measuring the emotional well-being and measuring the emotional side of the program and their happiness and the willingness to also attend week in, week out was actually baked goods. The first 3 sessions, we didn't have any, but by the end of it all, there were kilos of cake sitting around. And so in a way, for us, cake equals success. And definitely also all in the smile as well. And so in a way, we really can see that for capturing data, our non-traditional approach for impact measurement, of course, it's not just cake alone, but in addition to the traditional ways of capturing data, we found that it was hugely effective. We could report in another way, so quite pictorially as well, and also in capturing how they feel about attending. From wonky work to scalable, again, or to saleable, sorry, from wonky work to saleable. And this is our road to retail. And so I think I'm answering Lana's question now about where the products are sold. So from wonky work, this is the bit where, so in around the impact measurement part, the wonky work obviously can't be sold. But the wonky work is hugely crucial for us to understand where their pain points are in terms of accuracy. And so cake and beyond, the cake bit, that's great and that's all well and good. We understand that they're happy now, but now we have to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of earning the money. So this is where the kind of seriousness kind of kicks in. So this is how we do our assessments. As I mentioned earlier, we ask them to send down their pictures of their products that they make to us via WhatsApp. We ask them to take pictures of the sides, the zip, the inside, the outside, the base, where all the joins are. And we use the pen tool or whatever, the drawing tool on their phone to mark up where they've gone wrong. So on here, you can see some of them have made the panels too wide. They're not straight. Their stitching is not necessarily accurate. So we mark on this so you can see what it should look like. And then we'll send down, using Google Translate, a small little tip sheet of how they can measure it, or perhaps they have measured it but just placed the fabric incorrectly. Everything that we have is pretty much symmetrical, so that we choose to use things with straight lines rather than a floral print, so that hopefully they can actually follow it. In the session, as I mentioned, usually when they're sewing and we're teaching in the and the part where they're making the product, we'll call them over one by one, and we'll also look at their work too. And this part also, not just by looking at their work for quality control, for mistakes purposes, but also quality control. We issue dockets. So you can see next to Carla's elbow there is a triplicate notepad. The triplicate notepad has got a docket for them. So we tell them how many pieces they've submitted and how much they can earn from that. And a triplicate goes into our books and the rest goes into the organization. And so they know that docket is as good as money. And that was really the turning point. I think at the beginning, they're probably wondering, where is this going? We're making these pouches. All they're doing is telling us they're not straight, they're not nice, do this, do that. And they're probably wondering, where this is going. But as soon as we started issuing the dockets to the ones who were good, they finally understood the relationship between having to sew really well and then submitting a good piece of work. And they also noticed that not necessarily the ones that were prolific in the first place and kind of a bit more confident, sometimes they were the ones that weren't producing product for sale because of lack of quality. So the woman standing in front of Carla is a woman called Lena. And Lena is from Yemen, and she is the maker of the pancakes. And she's super shy. The first 2 sessions, she was there, but barely there. She was virtually invisible. But we realized that because she was taking it all in, she didn't ask any questions, just looked and observed. And actually, Lena became one of our highest earners, consistently turning in work, which was taken for sale. And so all her dockets that she kept, we send the money straight away. And on the far right, you can see this is a lady called, I think it's Ibtisam. Yeah, Ibtisam. And she's a very diligent worker. Again, slow but steady. And she's another one of the ladies who produces really well and really highly accurate, good quality products. How we can also chart impact measurement is through their emotions, like I said. The picture here is more or less, I wouldn't say day 1, but I'm looking around about the 3rd session, so maybe like week number 3. So this girl, Yasmin, she's quite young, I would say roughly about 17 years old. She's aged out of the school system already, but with, I think, 6 siblings to take care of. Her work is pretty much cut out. She's the eldest of the 6, so she takes care of the family. In the first session, having not been to school herself very much, we found that the way that she handled scissors was, with no finesse. She had very poor hand-eye coordination. She was eager, but not necessarily patient either. So at the beginning, there was a lot of frustration from especially from her side. It's hard to explain to her that don't take it personally. Just try and slow down and do the best that you can. And in fact, in the first session, she got so frustrated that she got up and left the room. And we thought that she'd just gone to get a break, but she didn't. I don't know where she went. She didn't come back. But she came back the next day to finish off her bag. But when she finished off her bag, she finally could see that with just a bit of patience, that the product that she made, and this bag that she's holding in the picture she's standing on her own, was one that we took for sale very early on in the project. Not necessarily all of them are producing in the very first few sessions. A lot of them wait, their skills build up until maybe towards the end of the sessions or the program, they can actually start remitting their work for payment. Yasmin was one of the girls who started being very highly accurate very early on. Partly also because she by that point developed no fear no fear about being with us, and also not being able to communicate with us as such. But I think we showed her and demonstrated to her that we actually care about her progress, troubleshooting along the way. So much so that around about the 4th session, we noticed that she was offering other people help. And you see in the middle picture, the other lady, Rula, has got a problem, and so she's come to us. But Yasmin is hovering around, and she's able to troubleshoot. And this, for us, is a massive measurement of the program's ability to make the skill of sewing understood in so many different realms. So from being an absolute non-sewist, extremely shy, being able to troubleshoot for somebody else despite having no sewing experience is something that we can chart in the form of pictures. So again, like I said, traditional measurement methods don't necessarily work for us. We can't possibly translate this into numbers or percentages. And at the end, you can see she's holding a pair of shorts up for her little sister that she's made. And this is the non-product making session. This is more about sewing for home and life. You can see the eyes from week 1 to week, which I'm not sure where about this is, but maybe halfway through. You can see from the picture that her eyes are smiling. And beneath the mask, there is definitely a smile. There's more questions here. Let's quickly pull the questions up. Let's see. Thank you, Kidis. Yes, it is really interesting. Thank you. And Yasmin is a young girl like many others. She's very, very fashion oriented. She is really keen on the way that she presents herself. She's very fashionable. And in fact, the first thing that she bought for herself when we gave her the docket and we sent the money down, she bought herself a baseball hat, which she wore over her scarf. So here's our class. So we're taking a picture of the classroom from just as a environmental shot, just for ourselves. And Yasmin turned around and she cheekily kind of gave us a peace sign. And you can see in her eyes that it was not really planned. You can see that she's joking underneath there as well. And for us, this is we feel that we have transcended the traditional teacher-student relationship. Because we are there, although we're there as facilitators and teachers, we are really there as kind of like friends and allies. 2 ways, so the pie and the pie. Again, comparing the ways that we measure the impact. So in our workshops, we can safely say that 100% of the women in this particular program did get over the finishing line. So we totally smashed the claim for the outcome of the program. But however, in that 100%, it's not necessarily that all 100% will be able to earn money, because the learning to sew part is just the beginning. The finesse and the understanding of patience and the relationship between patience and the outcome is what this chart, this pie chart, is actually depicting. That although there were 100% of women that they can sew, that only 75% of them are able to sew confidently. And that is, let me see, that was I think 18 of them learned to sew confidently and able to sell, and a couple of them were just improving their technical skills. But by the end of the program and into the sustainability phase, 100% of the women have learned and earned. This is the first tray of cakes. This is a lady called Reja, and she's made a plate of cakes, which was not meant for sharing. And we took them home and ate them on the way home in the car. And it created a smaller competition between them. I think the others saw that we were so excited by it. It's like the apple for the teacher kind of thing. We weren't going to give her preferential treatment, but it certainly felt like the way possibly to the rest. So the following week, we were inundated with cakes. And again, we feel that this is a sign that we have, I think, won their trust. So the measuring success, yes, is it straight, but is it saleable? I think this answers David's question. I think, how is it marketed? It'll be going to that. So it's straight, but is it saleable? Not always, because straight doesn't always mean tidy. Sometimes it's a bit wonky. We certainly cannot accept that. We want our products to be bought repeatedly. We don't want them to be a pity purchase in any way. And we also want them to be owning it, to be owning their ability, to be owning their faith in their ability, and also owning their part of the responsibility in earning money. And also in that sense, that earning money gives them visibility. So in terms of the journey from wonky to saleable, it usually is we troubleshoot it and then it gets sold. Oh, this is rather big. Sorry, it's jumped out to all of you. So this, in the project period, in the selling period, the saleability period, and that is after they've learned to sew and start making money. This is between September and December. They're collectively, the 20 women made 17,410 dirhams. That's roughly, I've got this down. It is almost $5,000, so $4,740, or £3,800, or 4,325 euros. And that was just for the period for the program sustainability period alone. So going to market. So to answer your question, David, how do the products get marketed? In the program, in that project period, it was the end of the year, so it was a perfect time. We've got loads of craft markets here in the UAE, and what we did was we split the time between two craft markets, two of the biggest ones, and we bought a product there. As well as that we supported them through their marketing efforts. That's something we are responsible for. So we use the traditional forms of marketing, digital marketing, word of mouth, and using also partnering up with specific organizations and craft markets who also do a lot of marketing on all of their vendors' behalf. So in terms of going to market, it's a very big concerted effort between all the various stakeholders as well as stakeholder networks, which is hugely important. So there's a lot of private sales, school sales, but 17,410 meant each woman did not get exactly the same amount because we pay according to how many items they've made. So some made more than others, but also it's an incentive for them to focus on producing more product in a highly accurate way when the new year comes round. We also brought them onto onboarded them onto a online platform in the UAE. We delivered onboarding training to the managers of the program. We showed the ladies how to take photographs and how to upload them to the website, and so they're also selling on there as well. We also try to connect them with schools who have, like, say, free tables. Corporate gifts is another one that we're really big on. Corporate gifts is good for them because it's a set project, it's a set number of items, and so we're always finding ways how we can work with them. Oh, thank you, David. Yes, the docket system of immediate payout is we know that's what they really want to do, is start earning money, because it's like going to work. I mean, none of us would go to work and work for free for 6 months and get a salary at the end of it all. So we try to liken it with that way as well. It's like pushing them through a very fast-paced a training program, and at the other side, the main aim we always communicated with them was the quicker and better you learn to sew, the quicker you can earn money. So the immediate payout is hugely important, and we saw a massive rise in the way they worked once we started paying out. So Mikhail, you've got your hand up. Do you want to put your question inside the chat box? Or is that...
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. This is a very amazing, creative information for today. So my question is, what's the impact, and what's, for example, when you're just training for the trainees and then make them ready for a job, is like, how long would it be, the capability, especially from the trainees, their capability? And also when they are when they just go for the job, they just come, is like, do you think anybody from zero can be at that level, or is like those who've been trained are sort of, they just be in the program for the sort of having a capability of sewing and then they be in that program?
Thank you for your question, Mika. The sewing program, one of the criteria that we have is taking somebody in with no sewing skill, because we want to try to make sure that they don't have bad habits, for instance, or that they don't come to the program with a preconceived idea, because that also shapes the way that they work too. So we prefer if they come to us only without any sewing skills. The sewing program, Mikhail, lasts for 6 months. But the sewing part of it is it's a whole day. For the first 8 weeks, for the first 2 months, it's 8 sessions weekly. So group A comes in on one day, group B comes in another day, and then on the third day we have is like a sewing social. They come in and it's a troubleshooting time. From there, it's hard to say because every one of them have their own different learning speeds. But after 6 months, they already started to sew for each other and for themselves. So with a little bit of encouragement from us. In fact, they didn't really need our encouragement because within our workshops, within our programs, we've got a built-in entrepreneurial skills section. So it's up to, if they want to take it on and move on beyond working with us, that's absolutely fine. They can work with them. And so typically, to answer your question, it's 6 months. And even smaller. Some of them are making things for their friends, even during our program, but that's something they can speak to each other about. They don't have to run that through. They don't have to run that through us. They make prayer dresses, or they make items for each other, or alterations for the local families. That's something that they can do within the program. So we don't hold them to only earning and starting their own businesses once they graduate. It's quite a fluid program. So moving forward, what's it going to take? So these are the products which are going to market. I'm going to just kind of start speeding up because we're kind of running out of time. Moving forwards, we have partnered up with like-minded organizations. We are really happy to say that in the UAE, we've got 3 partner organizations already, which take our products for sale. Jumeirah Mosque, in Dubai and UAE, only practicing Muslims are allowed to go into the mosque. There are 2 mosques, however, which allow visitors, and one of them is Sheikh Zayed Mosque in Abu Dhabi, and the other one is Jumeirah Mosque in Dubai. Jumeirah Mosque has a retail section, and our products are sold there. We roughly shift about 40 pieces, sometimes more, of every month. We get our sales report back, which is a good sign that we know that the product is nicely designed, and B, that the sewing standard is up for international buyers, because Jumeirah Mosque is Dubai's pretty much top cultural destination, and so when people go there, they end up in the gift shop, and that's where our products sit. We've not had any negative feedback. On the contrary, people buy them in multiples, which is, we feel, a sign that the products are really well made, thanks to the girls and their dedication. So what does it look like when moving towards sustainability? They work together. They come into the centre now, so their husbands know where they're going because of the programme. Their husbands know that every week or month they come to the centre to learn, and so the husbands feel like, okay, they're not going off anywhere unusual. In fact, the husbands drop them off, and they come and work together. Which sounds... why I sound so surprised is at the beginning they barely spoke to each other, but now they treat the making sessions as a way to connect with each other, share each other's problems, childcare problems, husband problems. They bring tea, they bring cake. So again, tea and cake is kind of like the uniting factor, and what they do know is they're working together for the greater good. Sometimes they'll take the different steps each so that they can finish a product. Some people are better at cutting, some people are better at sewing, so they work together to get it done, and then they share the proceeds somehow. We work on creating partnerships. That's our job. So, like I said, we have connected with the Sheikh Mohammed Centre, which is a cultural centre here in Dubai, and again, high tourism footfall. Also the Hotel Indigo downtown, which is in a part of the Intercontinental Hotels Group, I want to say. And also what's most important is that we're actually creating a huge number of entrepreneurs because they can see that the relationship between effort and working together and actually makes them money as well. And so we know that working together, they can produce products that provide economic mobility. So a little snapshot again. The women in the group. We create for them a label. So the one in Abu Dhabi is called Basmat Amal, which basically means an imprint of hope. It's like small smile. That is what Basmat Amal means. We don't have a name yet for the group in Sharjah. The picture, you can see the rack, that's in the Jumeirah Mosque, and our products are sold there. And the girls put their names into the labels. Again, it's because it gives them ownership, responsibility. When they were submitting their work anonymously, they would just put it in there, and it's just there. We don't know who makes it. But once we put their names in, not to say that the ones that necessarily, we only send the best ones out, we put their name in so that they have a part, they know they played a part. And also because they're quite shy by nature, this is one way they can put their imprint on the bag, which goes out to the world. The hands on the right hand side, that was from Bahaka Camp, and that was gives them ownership and a voice to the outside world that they matter. Before the whole program, I can probably say that they felt extremely invisible and just ignored. But now, thanks to their skill and to the commitment to the program, their voices are being heard and they're being valued by their community and by their families. And this is something which doesn't necessarily upset the status quo either. I think there's a couple more questions. Are there regulations we need to consider when selling taxes? Stephanie, are you talking about the UAE? We are licensed for all of this. We don't have tax here as such yet. It's coming in, so that's going to be something we'll navigate when the time comes. The regulations, well, the business license we have, so those are the two main things. But again, if you're replicating this program wherever you are, I would say please do look into the tax regulations and also regulation by working from home. Just in general, as things to consider. Yes, I would say wherever you're working is probably best. You don't want to get to the wrong side of the law. The ties that bind, a very, very heavy and poetic statement. And what we mean by that is the idea that we're bringing the women together in a way where the community before wasn't there. So it wasn't that it was broken, but it just wasn't there. And through the skill of sewing and the sewing program and the natural ability of women to come together and work together, and this means it is something that will keep them together as they move forward. The program is a train-the-trainer style. So they're able to share the skill with their family, with the community. So it's not just solely contained for the women in the program. It's a ripple effect. They are very welcome to share. And in fact, we do know that the program has expanded even after our departure. Now, we haven't left the program at all. We go back, we check in every month, again for measurement of how they're getting on, and also when we design new product that we feel would benefit their current offering, we'll go down and train the ladies how to fill in the gap and answer any questions. We'll bring them more fabric. Sometimes we're gifted fabric, so we bring that to them. We get corporate orders, but we're really happy to say that they're running on their own. They've got a team in place which takes care of some of the orders. So together with the online support and for us in the background, it's been about 1.5 years now, and they're doing really, really well. Sharjah project is coming along, and they're not quite finished, so we're not really able to deliver a huge amount of data on that one, except for the fact they're hitting their targets. We don't have much time left. I'm happy to take any questions. Is there any? No?
Yeah.
I think I answered as many as I could in the time that I had.
Yeah, maybe if we can send everyone a link where people overseas can buy the products. I'm going to stop my share. Hold on 1 second. So you can see I've got my own bag to everyone in the community. So, and I love my bag. I get lots of compliments, and I give lots as presents. So thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Carla. This has been an amazing session. I hope that you guys have really gotten an idea of the amazing work the ladies do. I mean, I was so happy that, you know, I met Teresa and Carla many years ago, and we sort of came up with this idea for the ladies in Abu Dhabi, and, you know, and off we went with this, and they've done an amazing job. So yeah, I'm really happy to have you guys here. And to the audience, I mean, these are amazing products. I get compliments wherever I take them, wherever I go, and I've given lots of people gifts in lots of different countries. So maybe Teresa and Carla will share a link. I'll get everyone to, you know, I'll share it with the Migration Summit community. So
okay, hold on. What they can do, they can just write to us first of all, because we are launching our own online platform that's in progress. Let me write. They can email us first of all anyway. Here we go. They can message us, and we'll add them to the mailing list and let them know when their platform is ready.
Okay, Stephanie asked a really quick question. We need to so they aren't creating their own businesses. It's sort of part of a cooperative, you know, from the project that sort of facilitates them. They can, but it's more difficult for them to do it that way. So it's part of a cooperative model.
Also, Stephanie, if they do want to get their own license, the cost that they've got to bear themselves, and it's not prohibitive as such, but it's almost unnecessary for them. If they wanted to at some point, they probably could. But for the moment in time, we take care of all of that, and then we work together as a kind of cooperative.
Yeah, amazing. So thank you, guys. We've got another session happening on the other channel. So thank you.
Yeah, it has been confusing navigating that portion. Yes, Stephanie, it is really confusing, especially because you want to make sure you want to keep that legit.
Yes, Stephanie, please be in touch with Teresa and Carla.
Yes, please. I've put our info. You can just write to us generally on LinkedIn or on. I write my. That's my email address. Teresa at Skills Tree, and also Carla at Skills Tree, same format. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. Even talk about if you have a project you want to get off the ground, and share some insights. Share what worked for us and what didn't work for us. Lots of things didn't work for us. I know we've kind of given you the fairy tale of how it worked, but behind the scenes there was something that didn't work. But you've got to navigate those successfully.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It was great to have you here today. This session is recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel. See you all soon. Bye, everyone.